Woo! Hey, okay, so we did it. It is day 7 of Freedom Week. For the past 6 days, we've been talking about a radical reclamation of our power and authority to heal and be whole from the inside out. Today, we're going to recap the past 6 days, and I'm just going to give you some encouragement about reclaiming your freedom today. Okay, so let's jump right on in. So, day 1, we talked about how there is a gap in healthcare and soul care. That gap being that the focus on in both of those spheres of influence is either on sin or on disease. I don't think I said that respectively, but you're following me, right? The focus is on brokenness. Rather than our original wholeness that God created us with, right? And so there's a way. There's a different way. there's just a different way for us to address the reality of this world. There's a different way for us to address, maybe rather I should say, our experience of life. There's a way that is honoring to our story, to our season, and to our sacredness. And there is a way that is backed by science, spirituality, and our ancestors. And that's kind of what we got into throughout the past 6 days. Um, we talked about the art of wholly listening to ourselves, to others, and to God. And we made a commitment together that first day, a commitment of radical self care to watch the videos that were much more brief than past videos that I've made, and hopefully brief like today will be, and just hone in on what we are saying to ourselves, honoring ourselves. So we talked about how holy listening is just being present with our own selves. It's building a relationship of integrity and trust with our bodies, our minds, and with our spirits. Um, it's just like a relationship with anyone else, right? If we aren't, if we don't have good communication, if we don't have open communication, if we're not vulnerable and transparent, if we're not willing to get uncomfortable with another person, maybe when they're saying there's a problem in the relationship, there's something holding them back in the relationship, there's walls up, whatever it might be. When we're with another person, if we're not willing to hear their heart, and respond compassionately and respect to what they're saying, there's going to be trouble, right? There's going to be difficulty in that relationship. Well, it's the same. It's the exact same with our body, with our mind, and with our soul. Okay, so that's holy listening. It's being present, and building a relationship of integrity and trust. So when we expect something from our bodies, it's not a one-way relationship. We are supporting our bodies, we are equipping our bodies, we are loving our bodies, minds, and souls. So, but you can't take care of yourself if you don't know what your body is saying. I kind of just said that, right? Um, so, learning to listen to our bodies is vital. When we listen compassionately and act in respect to what we hear, we build integrity. This gives our body a signal of safety. And that was kind of a catchphrase that we used for the past 6 days, the signal of safety, right? It helps us to shift from the sympathetic, the fight and flight, into the parasympathetic, where we can rest, we can properly digest our food and digest, which part of digestion is elimination, right? So we can also properly digest our experiences, what happens to us, and our experience of what happens to us, which we'll talk about later, is can be trauma, right? And so I hope you didn't hear that. Whatever. My whole family is here, but we're gonna keep rolling. So, when we give our bodies a signal of safety, we're shifting from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, the rest and digest, so that we can digest everything that's happening to that's coming through our body, everything that's coming through our mind, everything that's coming through our soul. Hey, Daddy, can you ask him to be a little bit more quiet? Yeah. Okay, we're back. Okay, so the language of our body is symptoms, both positive and negative. Um, Pain tells us when something is wrong or out of alignment with our body. So, but feeling the pain isn't enough, right? If we feel the pain and just stop there, it's like if our toe was hurting, right? We used this illustration earlier in the week. Like if our toe was hurting and we just stuck a band-aid on it, but we didn't investigate why our toe was hurting. Maybe there's a string tied around the toe. Sticking a band-aid on it isn't going to help. Maybe the toe is broken. Sticking a band-aid on it isn't going to help. Maybe we stubbed our toe and it's broken. Maybe the toe is on fire. Like we need to actually investigate what's going on with that toe. What's it trying to say? And then respond accordingly, right? So we need to not just hear, not just listen, not just say, "Oh, you're saying you're telling me that you're experiencing pain," but interpret what the meaning of that pain is. Um, so, day three, we moved from the body to listening to the mind. And we said that the body actually helps to unlock the mind. It's not that we cannot address the mind without addressing the body. It's just, why would you? Because it's connected. We're interconnected beings, and it's unlocking the mind to address the body, right? We talked about moving from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic. That impacts not just our nervous system, but that impacts our minds, it impacts our brains, right? And so uh listening, right? Holy listening is being present with ourselves. So being present with our bodies, what we just spoke on, but about being present with our minds, well, a lot of us don't want to do that. We can't stand being alone with ourselves because we criticize ourselves so much. um the language of the mind is thoughts, both positive and negative. We know something is wrong or out of alignment when we experience fear, in the forms of anxiety, limiting beliefs, and scarcity thinking. We're going to get more into that scarcity thinking later, but for now, we're going to talk about how a lot of our negative mind experiences come from trauma. And taking a pill or saying a prayer alone isn't enough to address trauma or fear. Um, I didn't say this earlier, but it's the same with the body. Sometimes we try to address our pain, going back to that toe, with just praying the pain away, or simply taking a pill, just popping an Advil or a Tylenol, right? But that's not necessarily addressing that. That's just kind of, it's not holistically addressing the issue, right? And oftentimes it's not enough. Um, and so God offers healing and peace from the inside out. How? Through the knowledge and the experience of God's presence in the present moment, whether we're going through something that's beautiful or something that is brutal, through the perspective of eternity, uh, just asking ourselves, in light of an eternity, how much is the situation that's causing me the stress, that's causing me this fear matter? Is this an eternal situation, or is this something that is temporal and therefore I can rise above? Knowing we all have all that we need, and therefore being able to engage ourselves with this inner dialogue, talking to ourselves or listening to ourselves as a passive observer, recognizing we are not our thoughts. We are the ones observing the thoughts. Our thoughts can come and go without us identifying with those thoughts. And so passively observing them with God, right? And having Christ's perspective on those thoughts, on those feelings, knowing that we are in power as we're seated with Christ, to watch them pass by and not to cling to them, right? And so the language of the soul, that's what we got into on day four, right? Listen to your body, listen to your mind, listen to your soul. That was day four. The language of the soul is abstract. Our souls may be expressive through intuition or a gut feeling, through patterns and synchronicities, through dreams and visions, or through our hunger and drive or lack thereof. We know something is wrong or out of alignment when we experience darkness, a sense of dryness or separateness, or a feeling of being lost. Our soul reminds us when we are out of alignment with our spirit. So our soul is eternal, and it can experience a lot of disruption, right? Like we just discussed. But our spirit is the eternal part of us that is hidden in Christ. It is outside of space and time, and it can never be harmed. It is safe in God's loving arms. Um, when we stay in alignment with our spirit by listening to our body, our mind, and our soul. And perhaps I should have done this video outside because my kids are quite loud today, but I was nervous about not having good enough signal. So we're going to keep going. But can't help that I'm a mom. um, that's why so many of us, so many of us, our souls are telling us that we need sanctuary. We need sanctuary from all the noise that tells us that we aren't free. Um, our spirit, knowing that our spirit is safe, can give us a sense of sanctuary, right? Um, we have to trust that that we can hear God's voice and therefore experience that sanctuary. That anything that we hear, that we understand that's in alignment with the language of love, um, the Spirit speaks. We can know that we are walking the way. I'm gonna kind of recap that. Just re-say that because I was a bit distracted by my baby. How do we know that we're here, that we're staying in alignment with our spirit? When we are listening to our body, mind, and soul. That helps us to stay in alignment with the spirit. That's what we are trying to help ourselves do. How do we know God's voice? God's voice is spoken through our spirit, through the spirit into our spirit, and it is recognized through the fruit of the spirit, right? Love, joy, peace, patience, kindness, goodness, faithfulness, gentleness, and self-control. If something is coming to us in love and in grace and passing through us in love and in grace, then we can trust that that is of the Spirit of God. So, and we give ourselves this. How do we give ourselves a sanctuary? How do we experience? How do we have these signals of safety within our soul? So we practice different ways of giving our body, our mind, and our soul signals of safety, right, to help shift us from the sympathetic to the parasympathetic, and more into alignment. Throughout the week, we practice that. I'm going to go into an analogy here to help kind of drive home this understanding. Hey, Daddy, do you think you can take Zozo outside? Yeah, sorry. Okay, so any good gardener knows that you don't truly eliminate a weed just by dousing it with an herbicide, right? That might get rid of it on the surface. It might kill it off for a time. Um, Much like our symptoms seem to disappear when we maybe go to a worship service and we get really emotional and we cry. Or was anybody else addicted to getting saved and you said the prayer every Sunday whenever there was an altar call? You might not have gone up there, you might not have been that bold, but you like said the prayer to yourself just in case because you weren't 100% sure, and that's a little bit addictive. You get like a, I don't know if it's like a dopamine hit or something when you do that. And that kind of simmers down all the feelings of guilt and brokenness that you have inside. Or maybe we're talking about physically, taking a pill, it for a time, it seems like those symptoms disappear. Um, but unless you pull a weed out by the root, it quickly gets stronger than before. It can even become, what's the word for it? Resistant to that specific herbicide, just like our bodies can become resistant to specific antibiotics and things of that nature. Um, our bodies are a lot like plants. Um, I really believe that everything that spiritual realities you can see on a physical level. There's like a macro reality and then there's like a micro. Everything is just like um, this pattern that you can see on every level. And what we need to grow is not just to treat the symptoms, but to truly treat ourselves, with radical self care. Um, it's not selfish. It is not selfish to have radical self care in one's life because truly, and if I can push a little here, and this is I'm preaching to myself as I always am, to not have a practice of radical self care, wholly listening to your mind, body, and soul, and then interpreting what you hear. That is selfish. That is selfish because you are not able to bring your whole self in service. to God and to the world, to your family. This is my experience, this is my story, right? Like when we are so bogged down physically because we're living in so much pain or so much discomfort, and we're so bogged down mentally because there's so much pain and discomfort in our minds. We're so brought down by depression and anger. We just don't have any energy for anyone, let alone like for ourselves, let alone for others. When our souls are so, we feel so dark, so disconnected from the divine. We feel so broken and so dirty and just guilty and just beyond just help. How it's like you've experienced just feeling like you can't be who you need to be for who you know you are. It's not being some imaginary self that you have dreamt up in the future. It's not being what everyone else wants you to be. It's being who you are, living in your power, living in your calling, living in your purpose, right? Um, that's that's what God is offering to us, right? And it's not easy, but it can be simple and it's made more fun and sustainable when it's done in community. So on day three, we talked about our mind telling us that we can't do this, can't do that. And maybe that's what your mind is telling you right now. Maybe it's saying you can't afford it. Coaching, that is, this community that I've welcomed you into on day four. You can't afford it. You don't have time for something else. You've already tried everything. Maybe you feel like you're too sick. Maybe you feel like you're too broken, or maybe you feel like you're not sick enough. So you certainly don't need something like this, right? Maybe you feel like you're a private person. And so you don't, maybe you're interested in coaching, but you don't want the community aspect of it. Or maybe you think, I just don't think it'll work for me. I'm going to try to address all those in one fell swoop, and we'll see how I do it because I don't have this scripted out or anything. What if you just chose to think differently? What if you just flipped all of that? Why does any of that have to be true? Who's in control of that? Who's determining that to be your truth other than you? If you are the one that holds the key to unlocking you, then why convince yourself that someone else has it or that I don't know, like just you don't have to. What if you can? What if you can? What if you can afford it because you're worth it? And let's be honest, we spend money on a lot. I'm not going to get into all that, but what if you can afford it because you're worth it? What if you do have time? What if you take an audit of your time and see where you're doing things that maybe you need to release because they're not really serving you, serving your family, serving God, and serving the world? Um, what if you haven't tried everything because you haven't tried this? What if you're not too far gone, too broken, too sick? What if? I'm not claiming that every disease will be healed by my group coaching program. That's ridiculous. No one would claim that. That would be cruel and like just wrong to claim. I'm just saying, what if you can experience more freedom? What if you can experience more community? And what if you can experience more of you? Just your peace and contentment and more wholeness and God's presence in the present moment with nothing changed but you. But your mindset, just a miracle at the level of your mind, of your reality, and seeing God's truth, goodness, and beauty right here, right now. Uh, what if you, so what if you are well enough? Maybe this is a space where you can still grow, learn yourself, get that much more intimate with yourself, um, and be a blessing to others. Um, So you're a private person. That's okay. That's totally cool. I am too, even though I overshare on social media. I'm a private person as well. Um, but you know what? There's no denying the statistics and the studies that show that people are healthier and live longer in community. So it might as well be a community that's focused on health and wellness and being the best you that you can be. Um, and I don't think it'll work for me. I think we've addressed that, right? What if? What if it will? What if it can? And really, it's not about this working for you. It's about that you already have all that you need. And this being a reminder of that, helping you to unlock what's already there. So, I just wanna wrap up by sharing a few quotes that are really impactful for me, and I just wanna leave you with them. I just really love my favorite pastime is researching and reading and reading and reading. And so I just want to leave you with some things that are a blessing to me. As a thank you for joining me, especially for this last recording that's longer than the other ones. But I just wanna give you this as a goodbye gift. Okay. Um, so, as you are learning to release what isn't serving you or God or the world, receive all that God has for you, and retrieve uh, who you are as you're becoming you. Just keep these with you. Richard Rohr says that, frankly, Jesus came to show us how to be human more than how to be spiritual. I think that's interesting, right? God had shown us how to be spiritual, and God needed to show us how to be human, how to live this life. It reminds me of a quote that I don't have here by, I believe, Dallas Willard, where he says something to the effect of, uh, it's don't ask yourself, like, what would Jesus do? Okay, don't let me push anybody's buttons, but he said something to the effect of, don't ask yourself, what would Jesus do? Right? Like, okay, when Jesus, 2,000 years ago, what would Jesus do with the situation? That doesn't usually give us the answer that we actually need, that we're actually searching for. Rather, ask yourself, what would Jesus do if he were me? What would Jesus do in your situation, with your circumstances, with your story, in your season, with your family, your friends, your job? What would Jesus do? Just, if that was helpful, you're welcome. That was, don't thank me, actually. I'm pretty sure it's Dallas Willard. Leave a comment if you know. Um, Another one I have is, if you want to go quickly, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. And that is an African proverb. I alone cannot change the world. And if you haven't caught on, I'm sitting over here thinking I can change the world. Okay. I really believe in functional medicine. I really believe in group coaching. I really believe in connecting the dots between and within healthcare and soul care. And I really believe in that for my local community. I'm in St. Louis. I believe in that for the Black and multi-ethnic community. I really believe in that for our country and the world, right? So, but I alone cannot change the world, but I can cast a stone across the waters to create many ripples. That's true for me, and that's true for you, right? And we can't let our minds hold us back. We can't uh, we can't put the pressure on our minds to fix everything alone, right? Um, our minds aren't omniscient. Our minds um, um, aren't all powerful, right? Our minds are just our minds. And we need to take the pressure off of them and instead just love on ourselves and care for ourselves and live in community with others. And together we can go far. Um, Lastly, I have, the art of medicine consists in amusing the patient, while nature cures disease. That's from Voltaire. And that statement is just saying that yes, we have medicine, and of course we're so thankful for medicine. but our bodies are so equipped. It's more about removing the blocks, removing what is holding us back from allowing our bodies to do what they can do, to heal and to be whole, um, the wholeness that we already have. So, you have all that you need to experience freedom and wholeness within you. Together in community, we can learn to unlock who we truly are in Christ so that we can live the life of love and liberation that we desire and that God is inviting us into. So that is day 7. I hope it serves you and is a blessing to you. If you'd like to join the coaching community, simply go to functional.faith or DM me to sign up for your first session that is complimentary. And then you'll get 3 more sessions one-on-one as a member, and then you'll be invited into the group coaching. And it's just $100 a month, right? For weekly coaching, weekly guidance for community, and living your best life. So thank you for joining me. I am sorry for the loudness of the kids, but just goes to show that even with young children and a family and business and everything else, you can pursue your dreams. You can pursue who you know you are. All right. If you'd like to comment or share in Clubhouse, I'm on there and I will be inviting you and anyone else onto stage. Or you can leave a comment on Facebook or YouTube. I so appreciate you, friend. You're so worth it. Go in peace and presence.